Are you ready for 3 hours of uninterrupted RTFL show?
All right. We are I think there's
Live?
a bit of it. We are live on the RTF Show. Welcome, everybody. It is our annual awards show. We are so happy to have you here. And we're going to run through a few things tonight. Give out some awards, obviously. Talk about the championship game. We will kind of review, the year as a whole, and then kind of look forward to next year, talk about some off-season rule changes and things that might happen there. We've got restricted free agency coming up this year, which is going to be really exciting. So we're looking forward to it. Hope you're looking forward to it. John, let's dive right in, huh?
Yeah, this is exciting. I'm pumped. Yeah, as much as I loved the regular season and the playoffs, I definitely look forward to the awards show every year. Just going back through, looking at what everyone did, some of the best moves, the worst moves, the biggest defeats, the best wins, all that stuff. And it's gonna be exciting to hand out some awards to our fellow league managers.
It sure is. It sure is. But we have to start with where it all ended. The championship game. What a culmination of the year. We really had, I think, from the about midway through the year, we had two teams that were just running through the league. I mean, bulldozing through the league. Most other teams didn't have much competition against them. And those two teams ended up in the championship game. It was Josh versus Peter. And it was a hell of a game. I think, Peter obviously maybe feels a little bit like it flamed out for him, but it was an exciting weekend of football.
Yeah, I would agree with that 100%. And looking through the year, obviously it was like, okay, Peter's guys continue to stay healthy, which it seemed like he avoided most injuries and or COVID throughout the season. He was going to make it, and then it was just a question of who would join him in the championship. And as we'll get into the awards in a bit, we'll just see that Josh just continued to make the right move time and again, and put himself in that position to get there, and then ultimately obviously came out ahead through consistent play by his team. Looking at it, just a quick stat, he only scored under 100 points twice in the entire season. Once he scored 94 and once he scored 99. Otherwise, he scored over 100. And I mean, that's gonna win you games every time. You put up over 100 points, you're gonna win most games. And Alpha Peter did the same thing. He only had 2 games under 100, 87 points in week 8, and then 88 points in the championship.
Yeah, the championship just kind of, that Sunday, as you're watching it all play out, the guys that you're waiting to really make an impact. And I really did think that this was going to be a big day for Tyreek Hill. I thought Tyreek Hill would rebound from the disappointment that he had in the semifinals. I thought it was going to be a big day for Stephon Diggs, and ultimately, and a big day for Nick Chubb. And ultimately, those three guys, plus, Kittle, really kind of sunk Josh's season at the last moment.
Yeah, and
sorry, sunk Peter's season.
Peter's season for sure. Yeah, and if you look at the bench, Peter was concerned about making the wrong decisions. Whether that be sitting Justin Jefferson in place of Waddle, which ultimately didn't really matter there. You're not going to play Gronkowski over Kittle in any situation.
Nor are you going to play Fant. There was no one on Josh's bench that he was going to start over the players that over on Peter's bench that he was going to start over the players that he.
You're not starting Wilson over Murray. You're not starting Damian Williams over, or is it Darrell Williams? I think it's Damian Williams.
Damian Williams. You're not starting
over Chubb.
Darrell Williams.
That's how that was. Darrell Williams over Chubb or Taylor. Like, that's just not happening. And so your only position is, in the flex. What are you doing? And Waddle has had a great season. He's 99 catches on the season so far.
He was incredible.
Yeah,
we're going to talk about him later. He was incredible. I think it's the right. I think he made all the right moves. Justin Jefferson and Waddle were a toss-up at that point, and ultimately they were a toss-up. The difference between 8.8 points and 6.2 points, for most weeks, is not going to make the difference in your game.
Yeah, but for sure.
On the other side of the field, Josh didn't have, I think, really the same. So I think there were a couple decisions that Josh had to make that were probably, I don't know if they were difficult decisions, but decisions nonetheless. And one of them was what to do with Cordero Patterson, a guy that really kind of brought Josh to this point in the season, and that it had fallen off in weeks, the later weeks of the season. For
sure. Yeah.
But ultimately, in the championship game, you want to start the guys that got you there. And Patterson was one of the guys that got him there. But Josh went out there and he started Penny in that flex spot. And I think that was obviously the right move, but it took some balls to do. And I think he deserves a bit of praise for it.
Yeah. And I think that really overcame the Swift starting there. And I mean, I think Swift fooled a lot of people in a lot of leagues this coming back, right? And probably cost a lot of people championships. But starting Penny over Patterson was a difference maker there, and so he got great games out of his Chicago players, Montgomery and the defense, which was awesome. Picking up Chicago was a great move there.
It was huge.
They looked unbelievable on the defensive end, and then
Robert Quinn. Shout out to Robert Quinn setting the all-time Bears sack record, which for a team that has had as many great defensive players as the Bears have had is no small feat. Pretty crazy.
Yeah, that's actually incredible. And had some mediocre games when it comes to other players like Pitts and Swift and AJ Brown, but Debo got his, and Justin Herbert was serviceable, and it was enough. And so I thought he made the right moves, and then unfortunately, Peter's players in the last 2 weeks just didn't quite perform. He was able to squeak out the win last week, but I think for as disappointing as it is, for Peter to not go back to back, he's still in a great position for next year, and
I agree.
Him running it deep into the playoffs again next year, I would assume.
As I put in the chat, Peter essentially dominated this league for 32 straight weeks of fantasy football. He did it for 16 weeks last year, and for 16 weeks this year. The only difference being that there were 17 weeks in this week's season or in this year's season. And that 17th week, kind of bit him in the ass. But I want to remind everybody, listen, this is a good point to take a break. The lines are open. We are fielding guests. Come on the show. If you're around, if you're watching, please hop on. You can do so in the Zoom link that I sent out earlier. Currently, we've got nobody in the waiting room, so there is no line in front of you. Hop on lines, if your phone lines are clear. So please hop on if you're around.
I know it is Peter Kramer's daughter Ella's 5th birthday, so I assume he is.
Shout out to Ella! Happy birthday to Ella! I
assume they're watching the YouTube stream on the big screen for her birthday, but
I assume she does that. She did that last year on her birthday, right? They watched the RTF show together.
Yeah. It's a yearly tradition.
I would hope so. I want to, jump over to 2 other games that were meaningful this week. One is the consolation bracket game. The consolation bracket game, pretty, the average Peters dominated the consolation bracket. Actually, really, the later these last 2 weeks put up huge numbers. 144 in the semifinals of the consolation bracket, 126 in the finals without starting a full roster. I don't know if anybody noticed this, but Peter was locked in to starting Kareem Hunt, who was a game time decision not to go on Monday night. Did not have another running back he could play. So ultimately matched, actually, no, Kelly was able to.
Somehow, Carson Wentz, unvaccinated, was able to clear protocols in 5 days. And
I forgot about that.
And play.
That was wild. But
so she started a full roster,
Peter just got another huge week from Joe Burrow to really round out his season. Huge game from Najee Harris, that touchdown at the end.
That was insane.
Pretty wild.
That was insane. Yeah, that won and lost so many championships in many leagues. It was nuts. I loved reading all the posts on Reddit being like, fuck this. Like, I was up 0.5 points, and then they could have just kneed it or spiked it or whatever. And oh my God.
So shout out to Peter. Congratulations, taking home the consolation prize, $50. And then the only other game, we won't spend too long on this, was the 3rd place game. Turned out to be a pretty close game between Fitz and I.
It was ultimately
a good one. Came down to Deontay Johnson on Monday night, who was able to secure a touchdown and kind of cement the victory.
That was great to see. Did you watch that Pittsburgh game?
I watched until Deontay Johnson scored.
Oh, really? You didn't watch the end? It was.
I went back and watched highlights of the. But I didn't watch the whole game.
Well, Baker was miserable, but he's so bad. But for as shitty of a person as Ben Roethlisberger was, and having to hear Roger Goodell on the Manning cast and Aaron Rodgers on the Manning cast too, it was cool to see what it looks like for a player of Ben Roethlisberger's caliber to sort of say goodbye. As being on a single team for his entire career. It was interesting. It was a little heartwarming.
You liked when they talked about the immaturity of his youth, referring to the sexual assaults that he committed.
I didn't watch Was that on the regular?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, I didn't watch that. I only watched the Manning cast where I had to listen to Aaron Rodgers talk about how he was a fan of Ayn Rand. So
Oh, really?
yeah,
That's
yeah,
great.
it's like, here's all my books. I have Ayn Rand books. It's like,
I
you're
bet he
fucking,
does. I bet he does.
yeah. So anyway, found out more of why he's a douchebag, but
That's great. The yeah, the third place game ultimately coming down to Deontay Johnson.
yeah, and look at that. What did Jalen Hurts? What was his point total on the day?
Jalen.
Hey, Mike, you did it! You did
I
it!
know.
Oh my God!
I finally chose the right quarterback, which I won't lie, feels great.
So wait, what are the
money
so
back.
12.96 points, and then Prescott 23, so a 9-point difference. And
Would have been right on the edge. I would have lost.
hey, Mike!
Yeah,
Oh my God, I'm so proud of you.
Oh, thank you.
That's incredible. That's like actually you finally did it.
I know. Unfortunately, it was in the game that, not in the game that I wanted it to be in, the championship game. But it was a big big hurdle for me to overcome. And we were in the meeting room all week. We were hunkered down in the war room, going through tape, trying to figure out what to do here, and ultimately came out with the right decision for the first time this year.
Even though El Bombolero's revenge came up a little bit short and not as spicy as I'm sure he was hoping for. He had a great season too, and we'll talk a little bit more about his team later as well. And so,
for sure,
I think he has a lot to look forward to. So, even though came up a little bit short here, it was still probably a bright season for him.
For sure. All right, let's transition. Let's move on to the awards. See what's happening out there. I was hoping that maybe we'd have some peeps on to see the awards at this point, but unfortunately, I don't think that's going to be the case. So I want to just dive right in. If somebody hops on during that would be great. But if not, no problems. All right, where should we start? Where do you want to start, John? We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We've got 8 awards that we're going to go through for this year. Some of these are a few
extra too. So,
and John's got a few extra. Some of these are revisiting awards that we gave out at the mid-season. Some of these are newer awards, but I think let's start with one of the smaller ones. We'll do this kind of let's start with
a best one. Let's start
with the big one. Let's do best waiver wire signing.
Yeah, that sounds great. Best waiver wire signing.
Okay, we'll do this like the Oscars. We'll throw like some chum in the water, and then we'll do some of the lesser ones, and then we'll do a few bigger ones at the end.
I like that.
All right. So best waiver wire signing, we've got 3 nominees for you. Do you want to announce the nominees, John?
So we have for best waiver wire signing, we have first off Hunter Renfrow being picked up by the Average Peters for $6, which that's right. Okay, and then which was great pickup there. And then we have Cordero Patterson being picked up for $1 on September 22nd for by Josh, San Diego Web Surfers, and then him also picking up Rashad Penny, our final nominee, for $2 on December 15th. So two nominees for Josh, Cordell Patterson, Rashad Penny, and then the average Peters picking up Hunter Renfrow.
So we're each going to pick a winner here. And I think there's two ways to think about it. One is this season, especially for this award. One is this season and kind of what it meant for, the season as a whole. And I think one is maybe a long-term view of what these players might be able to do to help your team in the future. Who do you have, John? Who would you give it to? Would it be the Rashad Penny pickup that really helped to cement Josh's championship? Would it be the Cordero Patterson one that kind of got him to that point? Or Hunter Renfrow, which kind of flew under the radar for most of the season, but was a guy that really, ended up having a huge year as a wide receiver that nobody thought about.
Yeah, here's the thing: is I do love each of them have their own story, right? Rashad Penny battling back from injury, comes back, becomes the man, takes Josh to the promised land. You've got Cordell Patterson, the man who's bounced around every single, several teams over, 32 years old, somehow lights up the league for the first 12 weeks. And then Hunter Renfrow, the unsung hero on the Raiders. They've gone through so many trials and tribulations this season, yet he really didn't get the respect that he deserved throughout the fantasy league or fantasy community. I'm going to have to go with the late season pickup, the Rashad Penny. I think everyone was counting out the Seahawks. They had pushed him aside. Pete Carroll's done. Wilson came back too early. He's not doing well. Metcalf, blah, all that stuff. And here comes Rashad Penny, just a true old school power running back, and just pounded the opponents into oblivion and took Josh past his bye week, through the semifinals and through the championship. Unbelievable, and a great pickup for so cheap. No one else bid on him. It was incredible. So, Josh, your first award of the night is the Rashad Penny pickup.
I think that's a great call. Rashad Penny essentially, wins Josh the championship and with both of those weeks. It really put him over the top. So I have no qualms with that. I do want to shout out the Hunter Renfrow pick a little bit more and get one opinion from you. Is Hunter Renfrow a guy that you sign a contract for?
I think that's a great question. And that is one thing, like in looking at Hunter Renfrow's numbers, it's incredible. He was Mr. Consistent, only broke 10 targets twice on the season, but had over 15 fantasy points. 6 times, and had over 13 fantasy points 9 times. And so when you're looking at that, he's doing a lot very efficiently. It's kind of like a poor man's Cooper Kupp, right? I guess to go with the sort of slot wide receiver.
I just want to know.
I don't know. I want to sign him. I don't know. Well, I don't know.
I just want to note that he finished with more fantasy points than the following wide receivers. And some of them, it's not even close. Hunter Renfrow finished with 198 fantasy points this year, more than Tyler Lockett, CeeDee Lamb, T. Higgins, Jalen Waddle, Michael Pittman, Terry McLaurin, Darnell Mooney, Tyler Boyd, tons of big name guys that I think guys are looking at as, long-term solutions at the wide receiver position. Hunter Renfrow had a better year in terms of fantasy than they did. So I think it's an intriguing question for a minimum contract guy. If maybe you throw that out there for Hunter Renfroe.
Yeah, I think you might. I mean, and diving a bit deeper into the stats, almost all of those 10 plus fantasy point games came on touchdown games, right? So, do you expect those touchdowns to be there next year? I mean, it wasn't a ton of touchdowns. I think it's only, I guess it's
no. He had a few very big yardage games. He had three games over 100 yards. So it's 7 touchdowns. It was fairly consistent production throughout the season. So that's just a question to throw out there. We'll see.
It's hard to say. I think you're going to pay more for him. I mean, he's going to get drafted next year if you don't keep him. So, I think that's one thing. Is he worth $10? Maybe.
Yeah, for sure. All right. So I think we're in agreement. The best waiver wire signing of the season goes to Josh Rashad Penny to win the championship. Hell of a pickup. Congratulations to the San Diego Web Surfers. Their first award of the evening.
No more coming, though. No more.
Let's go to the worst value pick in the auction. We've got 3 choices for this. Our 3 choices are Allen Robinson for, I believe, $31. Is that what it was?
Yes.
Clyde Edwards. Allen Robinson was picked by Alec Loesch. Clyde Edwards-Helaire for $33, picked by yours truly. And Aaron Jones for $42. Going to get a nomination here for Aaron Jones. Any thoughts on this?
I think there's a clear front runner, so we'll address that last. Clyde Edwards-Helaire for $33. You were expecting that offense to get out of the gate a whole lot faster than it did. It obviously has now come back to life, right? But it's a much different offense than what we saw last year. Than with Travis Kelce's still Travis Kelce, but Tyreek Hill's had a few down games. He's earned more than a few down games. He's very up and down. And then that running back situation has really evolved into a bit of a committee with Williams being sort of the preferred back by Andy Reid, and that's kind of where it leaves you. When CEH has been healthy, he has been sorely disappointing. And has cost you games, and it's just become this headache. And you thought $33 was a great value. I don't think it was. And then similarly, you're looking at Aaron Jones, who has been almost supplanted lately with AJ Dillon really stepping into a much larger role and taking away a lot of those touches. And as you see, looking at Aaron Jones, he only had 1 week of over 100 yards rushing, which is going to really hurt you. And as we saw, Josh wasn't really able to. Steve wasn't really able to rely on him down the stretch. Although he did have a pretty good end of year. So I will say that middle stretch was really rough, and that's where Josh started to
Steve started to
Steve. I'm so sorry.
Yeah. So here's what I'll kind of note. The first 8 weeks of the season, Aaron Jones had fairly good production. He had just about, he had 14.9 1 week, but for pretty much for 5 of the first 8 weeks, he had over 15 fantasy points, 15 or more fantasy points. In the other weeks, he only had 3. In the last 8 weeks of the season, he only eclipsed 15 points once. He got to 14 another time, 13 and 11 down the stretch. He eclipsed 15 in a 20-point game in week 14. But, he had a 3-week stretch there a 5-week stretch if you include his bye week. From week 9 through week 13, the most probably crucial part of the season for fantasy, in which his stats his fantasy points per game went 5.3, 10.6, did not play, 2.3, bye week, did not play. And that's what kind of crushed Aaron Jones owners down the stretch. But with that said, I think there's a clear worst value pick. And it's the same one that was there halfway through the season. It continued to be true. Allen Robinson was a massive disappointment. It doesn't get much more disappointing than Allen Robinson this year. And congratulations to Alec Loesch. Allen Robinson is your worst value pick of the year for me. Would you agree, Jen?
Oh my God. So bad. He is so bad. And it's unfortunate. And, looking at this, he never reached 10 fantasy points on the season. He got to 9.4 in the second week of the season. Otherwise, he did not total over 8.8 points, any other time in the season. Missed the stretch due to an injury and COVID, but was absolutely god awful. And good riddance in more ways than one on fantasy and in Chicago.
All right, let's do worst waiver wire signing. Here, I think there's 2 nominees that we laid out. One, Samaje Perine, taken by Ken for $45. A panic pickup to guard Joe Mixon, who ultimately finished the season as one of the top running backs in the league. And really, Joe Mixon, I understand the concern. I think the thing that kind of jumps out here is the $45 that was spent on him. But Joe Mixon finished fantasy as the 3rd highest scoring back in the league this year. Samaje Perine did not really produce on that $45 spent. The other one, we've already mentioned them. Darrell Williams, a huge panic pickup by the Decatur Staleys, $66 when Clyde Edwards-Helaire went down. Darrell Williams had some nice games, did help win a few for the Staleys, and was a helpful player, but ultimately was not a season-changing player, I think, for the Staleys necessarily, because I ended up having to drop him. He was picked up elsewhere. He had a couple good weeks at the end of the season, but those weeks weren't realized by the Staleys in that $66.
I think these ones are hard. Spending $45 on Samaje, when the other offers were 15 and 11, that could speak to it being the worst waiver wire pickup, right? But after the pickup, Samaje did score 16 fantasy points and then didn't play the next game, and then put up 14 the following week, and then has been relegated to the bench ever since. And so in some regards, maybe it was a good pickup, but ultimately in looking at Ken's season, it didn't help that he was that short on waiver money the rest of the year. when he desperately needed to make some moves. And then with yours, what's interesting with yours is that you did $66, and that was the October 13th, and then that very next game, yes, you put up 22, then 6, then 14, 9, 26. So you got some decent production, and the next highest bid was $45. So and then 35, 27, 21. So you knew you had to go big, and you spent everything you had to ensure you got your guy. And I think when you're looking between these two, you look at, so both had some value, both needed the player. The issue is talent, and I think Williams has shown that he is much more talented than Samaji, and so I'm going to have to go with Samaji as my pick for worst.
Yeah, I think the one thing I'll note about the Samaji pickup, in those 2 weeks that you mentioned, John, where he had pretty good games, Mixon played both of those weeks. It's not as though Mixon was out. Mixon was playing, and in fact, Mixon scored a touchdown in both of those weeks and had double-digit fantasy points in both weeks. So
that's weird.
Yeah. So it was it was more a case of Mixon being banged up a little bit, some fear that he may not be able to give it a full go. And in fact, in those weeks, he only had. I'm not sure who Ken played that week, but in those weeks, to maybe Ken's credit, Mixon only had 10 touches in that first week, in week 5, and then 12 touches in week 7.
Let's see.
Okay.
I want to know did Ken play him?
With that said, and I'll let you find that while I give my pick. With that said, I think it's undoubtedly for me going to have to be the Darrell Williams, the $66, given that the spending of $66 on somebody ultimately came back to bite me hugely in the ass in the playoffs when it really mattered, and I had no money to spend when ultimately both of my starting running backs went down and were unable to play. So it was a real kick in the nuts.
That's fair.
Yeah.
I think when you account for that can be. You could say that is pretty bad.
Yeah.
However, in both of Samaje Perine good games, Ken had him on his bench.
Well, there you go.
He spent $45 and then didn't start him in week 5. So,
well, that makes sense. Well, I don't know. Maybe it is Samaje Perine, but I'm going to stick with Darrell Williams.
Yes. All right.
I
think you both come away with some terrible fantasy.
Indeed. All right. Let's jump ahead to.
Notably though, Ken won both those weeks.
Well, there you
go. So while he didn't start Samaje, he ended up winning both weeks.
All right. Let's jump ahead. Best auction. We have 3 nominees. They are. You want to read them off, John?
Yeah, sure. So we have 3 nominees for the best auction. We are going to start with somebody who really came out this year and let it be known that he was not satisfied with last year, that he was on a revenge tour, and I think that really started with the draft. And El Bombolero, he came out and had a blistering draft, picking up the likes of was it Justin Herbert and AJ Brown, James Robinson, and then Cooper Kupp just a phenomenal draft. Antonio Brown too. Rob Gronkowski, Rashad Penny was on there too, and then what I thought was a really nice pickup too was Sony Michel. I think that was a bit of a deep cut there, and just overall, I think he had a ton of weapons to either go out and make moves, which he made quite a few of, and put himself in a position to really take advantage of the year. Second nominee is going to be Peter Sullivan, who also had a great draft with Joe Burrow, Saquon Barkley, who didn't work out, Kareem Hunt and Najee Harris, great pickups, and then dual threat quarterbacks of Russell Wilson and Lamar Jackson. I also liked a lot, and then we're gonna have to throw Josh in the ring again with Christian McCaffrey, who went out and got him, won him a few games, but was ultimately sidelined. Travis Kelce and Kyle Pitts tandem. We'll talk a little bit more about that move later. And then Javonte Williams for the future. Wow, he is shown to look phenomenal. And as soon as Melvin Gordon's gone, we're going to see big things from Williams. And then from there, you've got a couple other good guys on here, a couple value picks. But I think ultimately you're seeing, DeAndre Hopkins, Tua, who ended up not staying on his roster, but had some promise. And so, those three: Fitz, Sullivan, and Josh.
Yeah, so I pulled them up here. So Josh, the one I'll highlight, that you didn't for Josh is the Russell Gage pickup, or draft for $1 that I think was a good, a good idea at the time.
Smart,
and really proved to be so during the season. But ultimately comes down to going out and getting CMC, who obviously didn't last the whole year, but certainly got Josh some wins down throughout the season. Travis Kelce, which he parlayed into something else that we'll talk about later. And then, shoring up his future with Kyle Pitts and Javonte Williams. Kyle Pitts, who, had a relatively pedestrian season, minus 2 huge weeks after the second one, of which I believe I apologized on this very show for deriding Kyle Pitts. But nonetheless, obviously a talented tight end, and one that, if Josh does decide to keep, should be good into the future. Javonte Williams, great pickup. I can't imagine they're going to bring back Melvin Gordon next year, but who knows? The other ones you mentioned already, we had Brendan, nice pickups there. Obviously, Cooper Kupp, home run pickup of the year, auction pick of the year. Really just knocked it out of the park there. AJ Brown, which again we'll talk about later. And then so those two teams made the playoffs, made the third place game, made the championship game, had great seasons, really, had all around great seasons. The other one, the Average Peters, did not have a great season, had a pretty down year. I think he was expecting, Sullivan was, to really use the money that he had stowed away from last year, the cheap contracts that he got from guys like T. Higgins and Terry McLaurin, to create a bit of a powerhouse this year. And I think he went wrong in a couple of places. He drafted 3 quarterbacks. I don't think that's a great move, but drafted 2 defenses. I don't think that was a great move. But on top of that, getting Najee Harris for $45 is in some cases going to be a season-winning league move, and in this case was a consolation bracket winning move. It won him $50 back.
And he has the money to keep him next year.
Yes, exactly. So I thought that was a big part of it. And Lamar Jackson for $20 had a pretty good year. Saquon obviously a bit up and down. Joe Burrow, another guy that had that was a league winning game that he played both in the semifinals and
three
in
games,
the
really.
championship.
Jesus.
Yeah, it's been pretty impressive. And so I think maybe Joe Burrow's a guy that you look at keeping for next year. I'm sure he's going to go for more than what he went for this year, probably closer to that minimum contract range. And you touched on a couple other guys. So who's your pick? I'm going to go. Well, I'll let you pick first. Who's your pick? The average Peters, Brendan El Bambolero. El Bambolero's revenge, and the Josh's San Diego web servers.
For as much as it didn't work out for Sullivan, I do like his a lot, and so, but I think ultimately where I have to go is to Fitz's draft. I think he picking up James Robinson, Cooper Kupp, Justin Herbert are great guys, and those guys had immense impacts down the line. Not necessarily for Fitz's team, but Cooper Kupp, but ultimately, picking up Antonio Brown too, I thought was such a great move. When obviously Fitz, he knows Tom Brady in and out there. If Tom Brady believes in him, then we all should have too. And so I think for what he had to work with and the amount of money, and he got some great guys that he ended up parlaying in some other great players. And so I think from a starting standpoint, he had a great draft, and so I would give it to Fitz.
All right, I am going to go Josh for I think the reasons I just explained, and that he was able to win the championship. But I do like the Fitz pick.
Yeah.
All right. Best trade. We highlighted two trades here. One was the Debo trade that happened early on in the year. And then the other was also early on in the year. It was the Mark Andrews trade, the infamous Mark Andrews trade. So the Debo trade was Elijah Mitchell from Kelly going to Kelly, and Debo coming back to Josh. And the Mark Andrews trade was Mark Andrews going to Bill and Mark Andrews going to me, and Cole Kmet and Gus Edwards going back to Josh, or to Bill. Sorry. Both of these turned out to be fairly lopsided, and ultimately helped two teams kind of seal their fate in some ways during the season in bad ways, and helped lift two other teams. Josh or John, any thoughts about where you want to go here?
Yeah, and the only other trade that I would bring up, and it's certainly worth mentioning as we just touched on these players, and I think it's so important, is the first trade of the season, which is San Diego Web Surfers sending Kelsey, Roethlisberger, Fitzpatrick, so essentially Kelsey, to Fitz in exchange for Justin Herbert and AJ Brown and Juwan Johnson. So essentially a Kelsey for Herbert and AJ Brown, which we both of us just highlighted why these two managers had such a great draft was because of Kelsey and AJ Brown and Justin Herbert. And then they do the swap. And I think, ultimately pretty even, but down the stretch, you saw Herbert and AJ Brown come through for Josh in the playoffs in a big way. And Kelsey, COVID, or he didn't have COVID, or he did have COVID, but came back and didn't play very well. So just wanted to highlight that. I thought that was very innovative and early trade in the season to really kind of kick things off. And both were eyeing to go make deep runs, and I thought that that spoke a lot to their drafting. But ultimately, as well as Debo's played throughout, and I thought it was a great trade for Josh. I mean, Mark Andrews dragged your team to so many wins, kicking and screaming down the stretch. It didn't matter what quarterback he had. That man was catching the football on, what did you see that? 10, 10, 9, 8, 10, 11, 13, 10 targets. Just monster weeks, 147 yards, 136, and you could count on him for almost a TD a game. That's incredible. Yeah. And so, I mean, sorry, Bill, that was really rough for you.
Yes, it was.
But that was a good trade for you, Mike. And I think that, you wouldn't be where you are without Mandrews here.
No, not at all. I am also gonna take the Mark Andrews deal pick as the best trade, though I think it's really kind of a tie. Debo, I don't know. Maybe I won't even take the Debo one. Is just I think it's a toss-up, I guess. Debo is so consistent this year and so dominant in two phases of the game, both in running and receiving. You know what? Yep. I gotta go Debo. I think getting Debo for Elijah Mitchell. I'm gonna retract my statement. It was the Debo one. That's what did it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
and ultimately, Mitchell is a guy that Kelly could look hard at. I don't know. Yep. He was $43. I don't know if he was.
Yeah. The issue there, and what made that trade so what felt so lopsided was. The trade happened just before happened on the 16th, right? And so that next game he got injured, and then was out for a couple games, and then came back in and was re-injured, and then
it was kind of in and out for a while.
Yeah. But when he plays, he's great. If you look down the stretch here, and then he got injured again, and so it's. Just classic Niners running back not being able to stay healthy. Yep. And Debo has had injury history, but this year he was incredible. So
agreed. I'm gonna go Debo. What are you going? Mandrews?
I think we're split again. I do think Mandrews was number one tight end on the year, and so can't really argue with that.
All right. We got a couple left. So best value pick. Let's do this one somewhat quickly. We'll breeze through this. I think there's three options. So we have three nominees. Jamar Chase picked by Steve for $6. Cooper Kupp, which we just talked about, picked by Brendan for $18. And Jalen Waddle, picked by the Alpha Peter for $5. I think those are our three nominees for best value pick. Cooper Kupp, obviously consistently great all season. I believe ended the season as wide receiver 1. Is that correct?
That's a good question.
I believe he did. I believe he did. And Jamar Chase and Jalen Waddle, both young rookies who had stellar seasons and really kind of ramped it up in the playoffs towards the end, minus that last game for Jalen. Sorry, Peter.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna go. It's hard not to pick Cooper Kupp here, but this is an auction league, and more than that, it's a keeper auction league with contracts. And I think the Jamar Chase thing is just too scary. Jalen Waddle, if he gets a real quarterback, I'm not saying I don't know what that situation is going to be holding in the future in Miami. It just doesn't seem as stable as what's going on in Cincinnati. Burrow is obviously there. He's going to be there. He's their guy. And to pair him with a guy like Jamar Chase, and then to have another wide receiver across the field in T. Higgins that kind of ensures you're not going to get some of the same kind of like singled out double teams that other premier wide receivers in this league get. I think Jamar Chase is a clear pick here. What do you think?
Yeah, I do completely agree with that. I think Cooper Kupp for $18 is an incredible value. I don't think anyone in the beginning of the season really knew that Cooper Kupp was going to be, as great as he was, right? Everyone's kind of leaning on Robert Woods as to be that, number 1A there. So I still think it's a great value. And betting on that Rams offense was the right move there. But yes, I think Jamar Chase is the the next Justin Jefferson right there, right? Being the best value pick last year. I think this is definitely it. All of us sort of scared away by the preseason a little bit maybe. But yeah, Steve, to get Jamar Chase for $5, and you brought up T. Higgins. Tyler Boyd is nothing to sneeze at, and you've got like you said, the number 3 running back on the year with Joe Mixon in the backfield, and so you can't just double him every single play, and so we're going to continue to see some big improvements, and so I'm really glad that he's in my division. So that's great.
Yes. Kupp did win, was the wide receiver 1 on the year by a country mile, finished with, I think, 70 something more points than the next wide receiver, which was Devontae Adams. Debo finished the year, as wide receiver 3, and Jamar Chase as wide receiver 4. So, huge years. Pretty incredible. All right. Let's get to our last 2 awards of the night. Game of the year. We don't have any nominees for these. John and I agreed on these beforehand. Mm-hmm. I think they're somewhat obvious in here. And I'm going to actually pull up the game of the year here. So we can all take a look at it.
Yeah, you should do that while you're pulling that up. I just want to have a few shout outs. As the most active waiver wire participant is Kelly with 40 waiver wire pickups, about 4 or 5 more than the next. Deal maker within our league is Fitz with 6 trades, which was great. And then a couple ride or die people who stuck with their drafts, and that would be Charlie Gilman and Peter Sullivan. Only made 9 moves on the waiver all season. So
both of them
9 moves total. So
total. Wow.
Yeah. Yep. So
impressive.
I would say for all the people that are hating on Charlie not making any moves, we have other people who also are not making a ton of moves. So pretty interesting. Pretty interesting.
I like it. All right. So the game of the year, we chose a week 11 matchup between Josh and myself that ended Josh 129.58, myself 128.44. Coming into this matchup, this was really a battle for the division. It was going to decide who was going to take the division, and ultimately that's what happened. And it led to Josh getting the bye week as well, and really being able to roll. in the playoffs. And so big shout out to Josh for this victory. It was a hell of a close game. Austin Eckler had a huge week that week, put up almost 40 points, and almost single-handedly won the week for me. For Josh, he got big games from Justin Herbert, from Swift, from McCaffrey had a great game, and really was able to secure it, I think, with a maybe I secured the loss with what was in the early stages of my complete clusterfuck of a quarterback situation. This was one of the first weeks. Started Dak Prescott, who got me 2.64 points. Left Jalen Hurts on the bench, who got 30.78 points. Obviously would have swung the week for me, and did not, but thus is life.
Yeah, absolutely incredible. I mean, you have so many big performances coming out of this game, whether that be Herbert or Eckler or McCaffrey and Deontay Johnson. One of DeAndre Swift's few big games of the season. I mean, gosh, Chargers had, what is that, 60, 70, almost 100 points in this, 85 points worth of fantasy points here. And so, one of Mark Andrews, you could say, down games at only 11 points there. But that was quite a close one. And was that when the Chargers, was that the Sunday night game there? Let's see here. I think that was the Sunday night game. And so
I don't recall if that was the Sunday night game. However, it really, the thing to note was, so coming into that game in week 11, I had 3 losses on the season. Josh had 3 losses on the season. We were tied in the standings, and ultimately, again, it decided the division. What I think is kind of funny about that is that we both went out and lost the next week. Josh lost to Bill, his first loss in quite some time, and I lost to Charlie in embarrassing fashion. It was, so that was my opportunity, obviously, to gain ground and to really overtake Josh, and it just did not happen. So congrats to Josh on winning Game of the Year. And we've got one more award. This award goes to the Manager of the Year. I think we all have a pretty good idea of who it's going to be. He has been mentioned numerous times in other awards within this very award show, including places like Best Waiver Wire Signing, mentioned in Best Trade, notably did not have any mentions in the Worst Value or Worst Waiver Wire Signing picks, and was also mentioned in Best Auction. That person, Manager of the Year, congratulations to Josh Porter, Manager of the San Diego Web Surfers, the RTFL Manager of the Year this year, brought his team to the championship. Congrats, Josh. Yes, applause all the way around. I don't have any sound effects. I don't have a soundboard. Maybe for
incredible.
Next
Yep.
It was
absolutely
great
incredible. Yeah. Yep. I thought he did so well throughout. Made all the right moves.
Yep.
From beginning to end.
We covered a lot of them on this very show.
One might say it was destiny.
Yes,
as soon
that
as he
was
was
the next. Well, go ahead.
as soon as he was dubbed the predicted winner by Charlie Rose.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable that he came to fruition, and so Congratulations,
Yes,
Josh.
the league Swami, the league's Nostradamus, our father, Charlie Rose, very excited to hear that Josh, one of the people that was not his son, won the league this year.
That's Ken's friend. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty stoked to find out that I lost and that his pick to win the league won. So congratulations to Josh. We will have to have Charlie on next year to pick a winner as well. So we're going to kind of wrap it up here. Hopefully people are watching on YouTube. Hopefully.
Who knows?
Haven't checked the stats, the analytics. But we'll wrap it up here with a couple kind of look aheads to next season. Just a reminder, there will be a form for you to submit rule changes through, rule change proposals. These will all be voted on. So any rule changes that you have, we'll send out a form for you to submit, and John and I will kind of collect them. And if we see some themes, we can put together a list, a little menu for people to vote on. We will have an off-season meeting, likely sometime in the spring, maybe March or April. We will see. And then we've got the restricted auction, the restricted free agent auction this year. This is going to be fun. So restricted free agent auction time is going to happen in June. It's going to happen early. So
yes,
what will happen here is, well, I don't know if it'll happen in June. Maybe it'll happen a little bit later.
So the idea is we'll open up the season, right? You know, sometime in May, right? And so, which at that point, then trading can happen, right? So, you know, the idea is you still have limited rights to these players. You still have limited rights to the players on your roster. So if you're thinking of keeping someone, or maybe someone else is thinking of wanting to keep one of your players and has extra draft capital, trades can happen prior to the restricted free agent auction. So you kind of get your ducks in a row. And if you have limited rights to the player that is becoming a restricted free agent, then that person that is in the restricted free agent auction, the player, you have, sort of first right, or I think in the NBA they call it like bird rights or whatever it is, first right of refusal, to offer that player a max contract all the remaining years for the standard percentages, and another person could decide they would like to up that percentage amount, right? And then you would have to decide whether you'd match or let that person walk. And we have a number of players that are on 1-year deals. And so, off the top of my head, I know that Darrell Henderson is one, Aaron Rodgers is another, Devontae Adams is another.
This also applies to guys on 2-year deals. So, as well. So it's filling out the rest of those 3-year maxes. Sorry. It won't apply till next year.
The next year.
2-year deals.
Yes.
So it's at the end of a contract's life that you can fill out, which is what I meant to say. So 3-year contract players will essentially never come up for restricted free agency. 3-year contract players will become free agents, unrestricted free agents at the end of their contract span. Players signed for less than the max can become restricted. So this is our first year.
That'll be fun. Next year, we may have guys that are coming off 1-year deals or 2-year deals. Exactly. And so presumably, last year, prior to 2021, we didn't have a restricted free agent auction because we didn't have contracts in the first year. And so presumably as the years progress, there will be more and more players that are included in the restricted free agent auction. At the moment, at least I think how it's written is like via email, a sort of week or 2 week process where, gather first bids, send out an email, allow people to think about it, submit a bid. So a slower process than, our traditional free agent auction that happens in August.
It'll be
so that's the general idea.
Process.
So I think, I want to have at least some opportunity prior to the auction for people to decide, whether they want to make some moves, get some trades done, or, have that auction and then have a period of time afterwards so that, if you want now that things have shook out a little bit before they make their keeper decisions, then to make some trades, because again, you still have your roster that is now locked at the end of the season through till the keeper deadline date, which is early August, and so you could trade those players, to other teams for draft capital, or fab. So
yes, exactly. All right, we will we'll be back in touch with all this information via email as the off season progresses, as well as the off season meeting date where we can discuss this more in detail.
Or rule changes,
Or rule changes. It is a big, a big, I think, change to the league is to add in this restricted free agency period this year. All right. Well, John, we did it. Another year of the RTFL in the books. We've got 2 different champions in 2 different years now.
That's good.
And
that's good.
God willing, we'll have a 3rd different champion, and it'll be me next year. And maybe, just maybe, you'll make the playoffs.
No,
You're right. That's ridiculous. Why would I even mention that? There's no fucking way you're going to make the playoffs.
I'm on a 12-year plan, Mike.
Okay. Year
Next
3
year
of a 12-year plan.
Is 10, and then the following year 9, and then 8. Okay? I'm moving my way up the ladder. Gotta have something to look forward to, Mike.
I like it. I like it.
Spend all your money at once.
I hear you. I hear you.
So
it's a good move. It's a good move.
And Peter is working his way down.
That's true.
So
that's true. That's true. You'll pass him on the way up in year 6.
Year 6, it's gonna be just a little swapperoo. I told him, I was like, look, man, I'd much rather have my first 2 years than your first 2 years. Okay, I got a lot to look forward to. He's on a downward trajectory. I am up. Well, look at this, but then this, but whatever. Right. So yeah. I hope we have a different winner next year. No disrespect, Josh, but
one other thing for Josh. We will be investing in a trophy. It will be coming to Josh's house soon for him to display on his, wherever he wants to display it. So expect that. That'll be coming hopefully soon. All right. For John, this has been a great year and a real honor to do this show for y'all. It's been a pleasure. We're going to sign off here, and thank you all for another great season.
Truly.
Another great season. Rose Tackle Football League.